friend.
Hey.
Welcome to our listeners, to our viewers, to today's episode. This is going to be all about the value that we put on our time at a big age.
I'm really excited about this. And I've learned so much about this from you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are going to get into that. But first, a little opening question. Em, what are you bringing to the cookout?
Beer.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a
Or
good one.
like drinks.
So you're not going to cook for the cookout?
I mean, aspirationally I would, but I'm thinking about in practice what I've brought to cookouts over the last couple of years, and it's always been drinks.
Okay, so you're not, yeah. I'm with you. I'm definitely not going to cook. I'm going to be on the cocktail ministry in some way. And if I'm feeling a little frisky, I might bring a kale salad. You know, you never know. You got to get those greens in every day. And so I might do that. But for the most part, yeah, it's some sort of cocktail, adult beverage. I'll even mix it at the location. But we're not bringing no other food.
So it's so funny because I saw this question as I was preparing for today. And it reminded me of this time. So I don't think you know this, but Josh and I used to do this thing every Thursday, BYO BBQ.
No.
Bring your own to the barbecue, and people would come over our house every Thursday.
Every Thursday, y'all would have a barbecue?
Yeah. And
Get
they
the
would,
fuck outta
I
here.
mean, for a year,
Yeah.
the year before we moved to DC. And people would bring meat or salad
Yeah.
or drinks, or it was so fun.
Well, this goes back to what we're going to talk about today, because I feel like this age in our lives, we convince ourselves that that's not a valuable use of our time, to go and spend time with friends and be in community.
And so it wasn't that people were bringing things prepared. Like, people would bring, like, raw hot dogs.
Yeah, and y'all would all throw them on the grill together. Yeah.
It was so fun.
Oh, that's dope. So we should find a way to implement that again. I don't know. Having people at my house once a week seems like a lot of responsibility, but I have a balcony. I have a pool.
It could be 2 people.
I love this. I did think about doing an open invitation on Fridays for people to come over to
Just
swim
to hang
in the
out.
pool. Yeah, just decompress.
Yeah, the pool also, they
chill.
wouldn't even have to transfer your house.
Exactly. All right, so stay tuned, you all. We have big plans coming up soon for cookouts or wind downs or whatever you want to call it.
Wine downs, wine up.
Oh, wine up. Yeah. Wine down for what?
Wine up for what?
Period. Let's get into today's portion of Dumb Shit Men Say. What are they saying, Margo?
Well, we're going back to your old-time favorite, Congressman George Santos.
Yeah, we know him.
Who is being held on... No, he has been released on bail.
Right.
So he is not incarcerated. But common practice is that whoever posts bail or posts a surety, it's public knowledge. It's for public consumption. So George Santos' lawyer, representing George Santos' wishes and desires, said this week, "My client would rather surrender to pretrial detainment than subject these suretors to what will inevitably come."
Meaning people who posted his bail.
So meaning he'd rather go to jail than having to release or share the names of people who posted his bail.
Okay, so that's a clear sign that they're hiding something.
So what is he hiding?
Well, so let's go back, because for people who this may be their first time hearing who George Santos is and you haven't heard one of our previous episodes, we actually talked about him, I think, first last season, about how he was being accused of telling all of these lies, things about his ethnicity, his background, where he was from, where he went to school, where he worked, basically everything
About his identity.
was a complete sham. Despite this, he was a Republican elected congressman. And despite this, he had not been asked by the party to step down. Fast forward, and recently he gets
Arrested
for fraud and for a number of things. And so this is the bill that you're talking about post-arrest.
Correct. And he's still in office.
And a fact that I forgot to mention.
So he's out on bail. A bunch of people allegedly put money together. His bail was, I believe, $500,000.
Oh my God.
So it wasn't.
So that's still $50,000 if they paid 10%, right? Which is
Yeah, but I
common
think they paid
practice.
$500,000.
Are you serious?
I don't know. We'll have to investigate that. I actually don't know. But because in some jurisdictions you post 10% and others you have to post the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever it is, he didn't have the money.
Clearly.
So someone's posting for him.
Well, I mean, this goes back to why he even got elected, the lies that were orchestrated, the things that were told, why he refused to step down. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but someone once told me that the opposite of a conspiracy theorist is a coincidence conspiracist. Yeah. So I would rather think about the conspiracy than the coincidence. Nevertheless, I think that he clearly has powerful forces behind him, because how else could someone have scammed their way to his place and not be held accountable? For me, there is someone, something, some ideology that is standing behind him that has a vested interest in him continuing to be this MAGA Republican, which is so interesting because he's also gay, so he claims. Stay tuned. I'm sure this will continue to unfold.
Okay. So thrilled that Osea is back sponsoring this episode. Osea products, of course, are not just for the winter. It is important to keep our skin dewy and soft all year long, especially in the summer. So the products that we love have use and potentially more use in all the seasons. I think the one thing that I change in the summer with my product use is I move from the body butter to the Undaria collagen body lotion, which is just a little lighter, but it's also infused with collagen, which is good for a big age and keeping our skin nice and tight and soft.
Yeah, and I yesterday used the tip that you talked about last season, which is to use the oil first directly out of the shower and then to lock it in with the lotion. And the combination I love. Not only is it like supple and moisturizing, but it also makes your skin look amazing. You have an amazing glow with this one.
Yeah, you do. And one of the things that one of our listeners was telling us yesterday at our live event, thanks to Osea for sponsoring that too, is that the collagen cream has been really helping her with her stretch marks. So that's not that are not our experiences, but those are experiences that we were told about.
Are really important. So, it is great to have safe, clean products that we believe in, that we use. So, we'd love to encourage you all to get hydrated with healthy skin for summer with clean vegan skincare from Osea. Use our code JUSTICE10 to save 10% off site-wide. We'll make sure that our link is in the description box or the notes for the show.
And thanks to Osea again for sponsoring us.
So, Em, this is a show topic that you came up with as a result of some recent experiences. So, can you tee up the conversation for us?
Yeah, so it's not mind-blowing or mind-changing. I think it's a little bit of a shift for me in orientation. And I'd love to set the stage because I think it can help kind of frame where I was and what state of mind I was in. And then I'm sure many people will be able to relate.
Sure.
So last week, I was in Belize on a yoga retreat, and sadly, I'm okay, got really injured in like a freak hammock accident where I was on a hammock and the hammock broke because too many people got on it, and I fell right on my back. That's the condition precedent, as we would like to say as lawyers. And I was luckily not, I was badly injured. I'm still in a little bit of pain, but could move gingerly. And once it became pretty clear that I didn't break anything, I still had 5 more days of this yoga retreat where I was alone to stay, to go, to kind of deal with myself. And I had really been so looking forward these last couple months, like for everyone have been really crazy, and looking forward to a break and to move my body and kind of get back to my yoga practice. And I had to stop. And so I believe it was the day after, I was in excruciating pain. I could barely move, but I like dragged myself to each class. And during one of those classes where I was literally lying face down on my yoga mat in this outside palapa where people were practicing and all these people are like practicing around me, I was thinking about how like part of my brain wanted to see this moment as a waste of time. Like, what are you doing in this class, laying on this mat, not doing anything, not being productive, not doing what you came for? And then the other part of my brain was like, there's no better place for me to be right now. What would I pay if I weren't here to be on a dock in the middle of the ocean, listening to the waves and being around people that I care about? And it made me start thinking about how we value time and what we would pay for time and what we pay for experiences, what we pay for things, and how what we think or what we learn are valuable might not be. And so I wanted to investigate that a little more. I mean, this is a conversation we've had in different capacities over a long time. You have been a longtime bullet journaler, which has been kind of, I believe, formative in how you think about your time, and pleasure and joy as part of that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's funny that you bring up my journaling practice because I literally spend time thinking about my time. And in that practice, it has become this self-care tool, this wellness exercise where I don't just plan the things that keep me busy, the thing that keeps my lights on and my mortgage paid, so the things that I get financial compensation for, but I also think about my other work, which is the work that I do on myself. When am I working out? How much water am I drinking a day? When is my next therapy session? Am I going for a bike ride? Am I going out on a date? All the things I think that have helped to keep me healthy and whole. And I didn't always see things that way. And so it has been a huge psychological paradigm shift to get myself to value my time and how I spend it on me and with family and friends just as much as any other part of my day.
Yeah. What about your approach to your time do you think you do well?
A few things. Number one, I keep days of my week very light that are just for me. And so my Mondays tend to be very light intentionally. My Fridays after 1, I block my calendar not to do any work at all. Lately, there's been podcast work that I've been choosing to do, but that has been very intentional and for a reason because we are in this growth phase, right? And so I want to give it dedicated time. But before then, 1 o'clock on a Friday, I'm done because I've thought to myself, what is the value of being an entrepreneur if I don't create my own schedule? I'm not trading one master for the next. I need to work on those negative habits in relationship with work that make me think every single hour of the day has to be prescripted in a particular way.
And I would say for me also, this concept of productivity as the only valuable use of time.
Or multitasking.
Or multitasking, or what is productive. How we view, what is a productive use of time? Because for me, I learned and have these ingrained beliefs that productive time is work, time spent with family, working out in a particular way, or socializing in a particular way.
Exactly. And some days, what I understand work to be is cleaning my house, finally unloading my dishwasher, unpacking my suitcase that's been in my corner for the past. Because if I don't do those things, no other labor is going to be as fulfilling, am I going to be as productive at? And so those things are just as important because they really kind of boost up every other aspect of my life. How can I create content if my house is not together, right? How can I get on live and chat with people and I haven't had a chance to sit down, have a cup of coffee, actually have breakfast, nourish myself? I can't get on live with 200, 300 people and be my best, right? So it takes those other parts of my life that I believe should be on the same level of importance and value.
So I think one inevitable pushback we're going to get from this conversation is around the privileges associated with being entrepreneurs and that a lot of people don't have independent flexibility about how they organize their week.
Yeah.
And I think, we've always said that creating your own destiny and creating your own professional path, even in our quitting episode, can look very different. It doesn't have to be blowing up your professional life.
It does not. And I also know, and because I think you and I were an example of this, that there are many people who have the privilege of taking time off from work and don't do it because we're indoctrinated to believe that we shouldn't. Okay. So PTO is a thing. And I find that oftentimes we hoard it because we have this idea that if we're not there, the organization, the job, the workplace is going to fall apart without us. Or we're actively being oftentimes illegally encouraged not to take time off. But what would it look like if you use your time to take half a day on a Friday, or to save it, not to just save it forever, but to take an extended vacation, 3 weeks off at a time? I didn't even know, Margo, that was possible. And I know someone now who does it, and it blows my mind.
So it's so interesting that you say this because I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a psychiatric nurse, and she said that the data shows that your brain doesn't shut off until after week 2.
Yep.
or not shut off, but that you can shed some of those things.
It's so funny because I was in line headed to Portugal, and I think I had a layover in Paris, and this woman was behind me, like, where are you from, da 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 da, and she was like, oh, you Americans, like, your 1 week 5-day vacations, what is that? How can you truly rest in 5 days? How can you truly rest in 7 days? We know how to vacation in Europe. And I was like, you're right, actually.
Yeah, well, like almost, I don't want to say everyone, many people in Europe take all of August off. That's a thing, that work is closed in many different capacities in August.
And I think there's something about when it becomes cultural, then society understands how to move, right? It's not just one person, one business, one family.
You're not missing out. You're not proving you're not proving that you are, dedicated to your work. Mm-hmm. You're just taking the country's vacation.
That everyone deserves to be healthy and to actually be productive at their jobs.
So I think there's another thing around this that I see and I'm also inquiring about, and I think that is probably a valuable lesson for a lot of people, is the self-inquiry around what do you need for your own life? Like, what are the financial obligations, the familial obligations, the day-to-day obligations, and what do you think you need?
Two different things.
And it's okay if what you need or what you want or how you want your lifestyle to be requires a certain level of commitment in the professional setting. Yeah. But it doesn't always have to be that way. You're not a passive victim in your own life.
Oh, I love this. You're not a passive victim in your own life.
Right. So there are many situations where maybe people could work less and have a different lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I did that, right? I negotiated a 4-day work week. And actually, of those 4 days, 1 day I worked from home. So I was only in the office 3 days a week.
This was before, by the way, remote work was a thing.
Before it was a thing. And what that meant is that in my negotiation, there was a salary on the table, and I actually said, I will take less if I can have this flexibility in my job. And it was one of the, I think, most important decisions. I didn't know how impactful it was going to be when I was doing it, but I am very sure that I would not be where I am today without having started that work of detaching myself from work. And it was that first type of negotiation that I think made a huge difference in my career long term. The other thing, too, friend, that I find at a big age is that we start to have less time, it feels, especially if you are a parent or you begin to advance in your career. You head to the C-suite, you're in the C-suite, you're in a director role. And it feels like it becomes more difficult for us to do things like socialize as well. And so I guess my question is, can we evaluate what socializing looks like and how we spend our time just in community in general?
I think we can. And I think I have so many thoughts about this because as someone whose social life and my friends are deeply important to me and my well-being, and I don't want to live without them, I also think that being passive about how you spend time with people is something that can get in the way of feeling in control or having flexibility over your time. Yeah. So what I mean is there's just a lot of forms of socialization that are, again, just rote and accepted, right? Grabbing drinks with friends, grabbing drinks with coworkers, maybe going out to eat, all fine. But if you're complaining or feeling bad that you never have time to work out, for example, but you're going out to drinks with your coworkers, can you reevaluate how you're spending your time? Mm-hmm. And your money.
And your money on top of that.
Right. So fitness is expensive. Yeah. Small boutique fitness is expensive. But consuming and consumption is expensive too. And no, I'm not placing any moral value. Yeah. It's just, I often hear like, oh, I don't have the money to go to fitness classes. Yeah. But like, you buy lunch out every day?
Remember when we were young and hanging out just literally meant going to your friend's dorm room or going to your neighbor's house?
And with a solo cup and drinking.
I'm walking to, for me, I'm from a rural place, so walking to the park, maybe riding your bike, going to a football game. Like, it was this very low barrier expectation around spending time with other people, which I think almost helped us value how we spend time with ourselves. I want to go back there. I was thinking recently how I just used to pull up to a friend's house. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money, post law school, early, legal services career. I would just go over on a Friday night with a bottle of wine and we would just hang out. We would find a way to make fun, to entertain ourselves.
Watch TV, watch a movie,
It was low barrier.
listen to music.
It was listen to. I learned so much about certain genres of music with this, one friendship I had that I'm thinking of in particular about this. I learned new things about the city. I got opened up to a whole new friend group. Like that part in my adulthood was very formative, and I find that there are a lot of those habits that I just don't have anymore.
I would never pull up to someone's house without a plan. But that's because I've gotten that message.
Yeah,
Like
don't do it unless
I just
we're
feel like everyone lives in their own little boxes.
No, that's true. That's real. And I think what we're talking about is how we break that down and how we deconstruct all of these myths.
Yeah, and so I was thinking like as I'm like laying like flat out on this doc that we can create and reevaluate our time in an ongoing manner as individuals but also in partnership. Right? So what's really valuable to you during one season of your life or one season of the year
Yeah.
doesn't have to hold value the next.
Yeah, and people are ever changing, and so are our priorities. And so that makes perfect sense. I mean, I spent a lot of time in service. I was a community organizer. I had a community garden. I led sister circles. I was in some sort of direct service capacity at my job and as an organizer for many, many years. Now, that's not what my time looks like. I would like to think that my activism has transitioned. It includes this podcast, my online platforms, my consulting, etc. But I'm not in the trenches spending my time in the same way. And as I say that, I also realize it's probably also why my relationships have shifted because my work doesn't look the same either. And so it's kind of like, how do we claim the place that we're at now? Take the good maybe, but also leave and redefine the bad.
And I think one of these kind of like things that has been thrown out a lot on the internet and other places, right? We talk a lot about self-care, but then also just saying no. And I think it's been overused in a way that feels maybe unattainable. Like, what do you mean say no? And so as I was preparing this, I was like, what are things in my life that I now occasionally say no to that I would never have said no to before?
Okay, I love this.
And so I don't go to every single one of my kids' games. Right?
Love that for you.
They're all involved in different sports, which I love. I'm super supportive. I've signed them up. I got them there. I get them there. But I don't go to every single one because if I did, it would be every single night of the week.
Yeah.
I don't go to every birthday party. And they don't go to every birthday party.
I'm sure you're always being inundated with play date invitations, birthday invitations.
And I don't like being out. This is for me more than 2 nights in a week. So if that's just a boundary I've set. So that could be like out for a work thing or with friends or for my own personal, but I don't like being out past like 6 or so, more than 2 nights a week. Again, those are things that I have learned to say no to because like anyone, there could be things that get in your schedule and fill it up at any time.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you?
I value again using the work week to do things that I would not have previously considered valuable enough to be in a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And so at least one day a week, I'm going to take myself to lunch. I'm going to get outside of my house. I am going to take a break. I've been really into, closing the rings on my Apple Watch lately. And so I'm walking about 2 miles a day. And I'm doing that intentionally during those times that I know I need a break from the other work that I am doing in my schedule, right? And so I think what's different for me is carving out that self-care, that wellness time in a way that lands, that I can make sure that I do on a daily basis, but also wherever I am as
And it
well.
doesn't have to be hard,
It
right?
doesn't.
The other day, so similar to you, I'm still recovering. I can't. And I walked to the post office
Yeah.
to mail some stuff. And I was like, look at what my body can do. I'm walking to the post office. I'm not going to feel bad that I'm not running to the post office or that I, didn't do something hard. This has been an incredibly valuable use of my time because it's sunny, it's beautiful, I can move, I got something done.
I love
And like
hearing you say
really
that.
changing that orientation about what it means to take care of ourselves.
And the value that time plays into caring for ourselves. I mean, it's the most important resource. And again, someone is going to hear this and think that we're talking about solely the privileges of being folks who work for ourselves. But I think it extends and it goes beyond that, because before we got to the point that we are today, we were, I would like to believe, testing and trying out a lot of these principles while we worked for an employer, right? You don't just develop this mindset overnight. So this is just the next level that we thought was right for us.
Yeah, and I think the self-inquiry and creating some of those boundaries also involves maybe disappointing people. And that's really hard. It's really hard for me.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's really hard for everyone to disappoint people in their life who they care about. And I think I can speak for both of us that like we spent so much time disappointing ourselves.
In that process of not disappointing others, and their opinion was always immaterial. I mean, obviously you have a boss, you got to make sure that
Yeah, of
you
course.
follow the responsibilities of your job. But outside of that, there is this kind of pick me mentality. There is this value of perfectionism that is completely unattainable. There are all these narratives that are structurally based, I think, that work against you, especially as women and people of color and folks of certain gender identities and expressions. And so what happens is we are oftentimes overly compensating in a workplace traditionally because we are trying to just make sure that we're seen and that our existence is validated, when really we're invalidating ourselves by the performance and the time that we're putting into the job, right? And there were many times where I could have just said no and made it a complete sentence. And what could someone have said? I was overperforming, so they couldn't tell me, well, you're being insubordinate, you're not doing your job. Those things were never true about me, but I was being convinced that they could be.
So I think kind of, and I really am so excited to kind of continue this conversation in our community, because I think there's a lot of exercises that we can do together and tapping into your journaling expertise. And I don't know if we can mention it yet.
What is it?
PlannerCon.
PlannerCon!
You are listening and viewing the Keynote podcast at PlannerCon Chicago, November 2023.
Listen, I'm so happy you brought this into today's conversation, because it has been so hard to keep quiet about this.
No!
PlannerCon has always been one of our big goals. If you've been here since the beginning, you remember Margo and I talking about PlannerCon and how this was a big goal for us. And the fact that we are now going to PlannerCon,
Anyway,
life's mission.
one of the exercises that we're going to be doing there is around quitting and creating your own professional path. Unsurprising. But one of the exercises that I hope we can start doing together in community is talking about our time. What are the, what's that word? Like tensions or expectations placed on our time? What are the gaps of time that you have some flexibility? How do you value it? Is it alone, in community, with family, with friends?
Yeah.
What are the freedoms that you have with your job? So, we were talking about the benefits and privileges of being an entrepreneur, but I don't know, having 4 weeks paid vacation sounds pretty great too.
Sounds great to me.
Right? I mean, And so there's flexibility there. Do you have to spend all of that time with your family? Can you be alone? Can you go visit family? I don't know. We have a lot of choices even when we don't think we do. And some of those choices are going to involve disappointing people and people we love. But the question is, how often do you disappoint yourself?
Well, and I also think that takes you being on a bit of a path of self-exploration and self-discovery. Because what does it mean that we are so concerned about disappointing other people? I think that is a root of a larger issue, that there is constant work that I know for myself I have to check in with myself about, because other people's expectations wouldn't hold weight if I didn't allow them to in many ways.
Yeah, I also think there's something about, maybe it's what you were saying, is the pick me mentality, where if something you value is time alone, that's looked down upon.
Well, I mean, I think it just goes to the narrative in our society writ large that there's something wrong with people who are introverted or people who like to spend time alone.
Or that people who are, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself an introvert, but I have introvert tendencies, right? Like I get a lot of
that's
energy and love and happiness and joy from my community and being in community, but I also really value my alone time. And I think these moments of big shifts have really only happened when I've had space for my life.
I think that is a beautiful way to end the conversation.
So thanks, friend.
Thank you, friend. More time will be spent, as Margo mentioned, on this topic in the private community. I think it is an ongoing discussion. Again, I think it's about just a larger way that we define ourselves at a big age, and how we spend our time is one of the most important parts of that narrative.
And if we're involved in some self-inquiry about the messages, and those messages that we've internalized and those that we're not internalizing anymore.
Yeah, we need to just shed and get rid of. So the toast of this episode, here's to self-inquiry and trying out different ways of caring for ourselves.
I love that.
Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Next time, guys.